Hello and welcome to Global News Today with me, Micheál Prendergast, and coming up in today's show, I'll be speaking with Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary, investor and Shark Tank USA star, for the latest business updates out of the US. But first, I'm joined by Greg Swenson, the chair of Republicans overseas, for his reaction to the appalling assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk last night. Thanks so much for your time, Greg. Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered last night. He's someone who you got to know quite well over the years. What was he like personally?
Just a really nice, warm person. And I wasn't close friends with him, but I'd met him on a few occasions, like, you know, at the GOP convention, the Republican convention last year in Milwaukee, and the inauguration, a couple of other, you know, political events. But he was really generous with his time. He was nice to everybody. He was even particularly nice to his people that didn't agree with him, and he always answered questions even when they were adversarial. And so he was really cooperative with his audience, really inspiring to a young generation of conservatives, you know, the so-called Gen Z, you know, young adults, university students. So he not only converted them and helped persuade them to be conservative and to live a conservative lifestyle as well, but he gave permission. He made it okay for people that were already conservative to come out, to actually be honest in their university or in their classrooms or even in their jobs when they were young adults. So really inspiring person, and we'll miss him. I mean, it was a terrible tragedy and absolutely devastating.
As you said, he was very much a star of the Gen Z movement. He potentially had a big future in office. Mm-hmm.
But potentially, I think, you know, I never heard Charlie suggest that he was thinking of running for office. So maybe down the road he would have, but for now, he was just so powerful as an advisor to campaigns, especially President Trump's. He was powerful in articulating the message and persuading people. So I think he really loved the role he was in. He was doing a radio show in the US, tons of social media, and of course the lecture tour. He debated at Oxford in England last year. He's done so many great things, and he had such an impact. The real tragedy is his widow and 2 little children at home. That's what really kills me.
He was very close with President Trump.
Yeah.
President Trump has come out and awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. How significant is that?
I think it's enormous, and I'm so glad the president. We expected him to do it, but to do it so quickly, and you know, it's not going to make it any less painful for his wife, his widow, but I do think it was the right move, and I understand. You know, the president is sad. He's really saddened by this, like we all are, but especially him, because they were so close. And it's not just because Charlie was so critical in his campaign. It's that he was a good person and they got along really well. And so he's saddened, but he's also angry. And I understand that. That's just the president being honest and candid, which he always is.
There's a huge manhunt underway at the moment for the suspect. I imagine Trump is going to be putting every single resource at his availability in order to catch him. Absolutely.
I think the president and all of his team, you know, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is doing an awesome job in general, but also on this case, Kash Patel. I mean, these are people that are really dedicated, and I think they would do it for anybody, but especially the fact that it's Charlie Kirk. And so, you know, the world is watching, and you know, we're hopeful that they catch this lunatic quickly, because obviously he's a danger to himself and others. And so, and he's obviously planned this out. I mean, this was not just some, you know, random handgun in the audience. You know, this was very deliberately planned, and he could do more. So I just hope it happens quickly.
There's a real sense of shock in the US at the moment.
Yeah, there really is. It was, you know, shock and then just devastation. And it was sort of watched in real time. You know, this is different than, you know, generations ago with, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., RFK, JFK. You know, there were news cameras then, but it wasn't really live. And this was absolutely live, and I think people have seen the video so many times. It's so sad to see, and it's so sad to experience. So, you know, I hope they catch you know, I hope the manhunt works quickly, and I hope they put him away.
And what have you thought about the reaction in the press, especially from some corners in America? It's been quite divisive?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always going to be some lunatic. I know MSNBC, actually fired someone today who had made some just really vulgar comments. But I thought that even the left-leaning media was very fair yesterday. I'm here in Dubai, and I was watching CNN quite a bit. And it was, I thought they were really respectful. And even the guests that they had on, for the most part, were really respectful, especially the Democrat senators and congressmen that they had on. So I thought that was a good show, and I was impressed by it. Of course, you're going to get the lunatic fringe, the radical progressive left, that just can't help themselves. The Trump derangement syndrome that never stops with them. So, but I think overall, Michal, I thought it was a pretty good day for the media.
The reaction online was quite a bit worse. What are your thoughts on that, and how did it come to this?
And that's what ends up causing these things. If you call someone a Nazi or a fascist or the end of democracy so much for so long, people start to believe it, especially people with mental health issues, which I imagine the shooter had. So it's really sad to see that kind of vile online vitriol, and I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's something I would ever do, but I do think, and that's another testament to Charlie Kirk. He would never do something like that. He made his point, he made the argument, he argued his case, and he was usually right. And so that's I don't think we need to go low on social media. That's just not healthy.
Security is a huge issue as well. How are other leading figures in the Republican movement? Have a look at Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Will they have to have bulletproof glass in the future?
I hope not. I hope that's not the case. But they have to take precautions, and they all travel with private security, close-in security. But that doesn't really help you when there's a sniper 200 meters away, like yesterday. So I think they will have to beef up the security. I know that if you're a politician, if you're in the cabinet, or obviously the president and vice president has the Secret Service, but I think a lot of private security, apparently Elon Musk's security was massive. And so I think, public figures, and especially conservatives, because of this sort of lunatic fringe, have to take real precautions.
You've worked with many administrations over the years. Has America ever been as polarized as it is now?
Probably not in my lifetime. And I think there's, basically a common sense revolution going on, where the Democrat Party has been co-opted by a small fringe, the radical progressive left, the people that want men playing in women's sports, the people that want to defund the police, that don't want to prosecute criminals, they want no cash bail. Those are the people that have co-opted the party. I think there's a lot of Democrats who might disagree with me on traditional things like taxes and spending, but they're not, complete radical fringe, and they're actually moderate Democrats, and that's the problem, is that they've been co-opted by this, radical left, where there's these what I call 80-20 issues, where an issue polls at 80, like men shouldn't play in women's sports, and yet this fringe of the party has co-opted the party so that all of them are supporting it. When legislation came up to make that against the law, biological men playing in women's sports, most of the Democrats voted against that. So, it doesn't make sense. I think if they dial it down, get back to the center, moderate on the fringe issues, and get back to legislating, perhaps like traditional Democrats. They like to tax more, they like to spend more, but that's not radical progressive left insanity. And I think if we dial down the temperature, dial down the rhetoric, and get back to common sense, and that's why I think the Republicans won in 2024, because it really was a common sense revolution. Just, sensible policy that works for Americans, and is not, some sort of fringe theory.
How can America heal?
Well, I think with prayer, for sure, and I think there's a lot of that going on right now, and you saw that in a lot of the feedback today, the social media feedback, and even on linear television. But I do think there needs to be some reflection as well, and what went wrong? Why are we seeing more of these incidents? Unfortunately, it's part of American history in many ways. I mean, the founding fathers really hated each other. Jefferson and Adams, or Thomas Jefferson and John Adams had, these horrible relationships. Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton had a duel, and Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton. This is all in the formative years of the country. And then, of course, you had, Lincoln was assassinated, and McKinley around the turn of the century, and then, of course, John F. Kennedy. So, unfortunately, it's a painful part of our history. And I think that we just need to, again, dial down the rhetoric and make sure that the extreme is moderated and kind of move to the center.
Opponents on gun control, they're going to lobby, and kind of perhaps we've seen online that obviously he was pro the Second Amendment.
Right, very much so. And I think he would continue to be if he was alive today. I think there's some misconceptions, and the natural tendency is for the left and the president's critics, or just the left in general, it doesn't matter who's president, of immediately pointing to gun control as the cause of this crime, and that's just not true. First of all, when gun control becomes more strict, which it has over the last 30, 40 years. 40 years ago, it was so much easier to buy a gun. It's much, much more difficult now. Every time they do new gun legislation, the homicide rates go up, armed robberies go up, violent crime goes up. So it's counterintuitive in many ways, but the problem with crime is not the guns. It's mental health issues. It's the fact that the George Soros-backed DAs have embraced this progressive anti-bail, anti-police, anti-victim, and they just coddle the perps, the perpetrators. And then the third issue is the defund the police movement. In Chicago, where I have a home, there's 12,000 police. 5 years ago, there was 14,000. It's an amazing difference, that 2,000 on the margin, and that's the budget. The budget is for 14,000, but they can't recruit police because they were so mean to police back in 20 and 21 with this defund the police movement and this real hatred on the progressive fringe for police that are protecting their citizens. It really doesn't make any sense. So I think the gun control thing, it comes up every time there's a front page shooting, and yet there were 8 homicides in Chicago last weekend, and the mainstream media doesn't care, or the Democrats don't care about that. They care about the front page ones, the big headlines, school shootings or assassination attempts, but it's not about gun control. In fact, when 92% of violent crime in America is done without guns, and most guns are owned legally, and there's no crime. Legal gun owners that own their guns legally don't commit crimes. It's in cities like Chicago where they're against the law, they banned guns, and yet it's got one of the highest homicide rates in the world.
And just lastly, Greg, what's your abiding memory of Charlie, and what will be his legacy? Well,
his legacy will be his beautiful wife and his children. But I think it was love for God, love for family, love for country. And he just oozed it every day, and he wore it on his sleeve. He didn't dress that up. He wasn't modest about it, but he was really positive about it, and he was such an optimist. And he shared that with those young people that he had such a great influence on. And that's, I think, why so many of them followed his lead and moved to the right.
Thanks for your time, Greg.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Wonderful, thanks so much for your time. I'm going to start off with Larry Ellison has gained 89 billion in a single day. Is this the clearest sign yet that the AI infrastructure is the new oil?
I think it is. 2 years ago, AI was hype, and now the productivity enhancement across all 11 sectors of the economy has become evident and measurable. And so I don't care if you're in financial services or real estate, it doesn't matter. You're applying AI tools that have become very affordable, most of them cloud-based, subscription services of different kinds, and businesses are adopting them very, very rapidly. And of course, it's putting tremendous pressure on the demand for energy. That's the core, because we have to build these data centers. There's demand for 45 gigs of data centers in just North America and only 5 under construction. But, Oracle and the cloud-based services they have and the AI services that they're promising and actually have now are, no question, being adopted by their enterprise clients. And so the market's reflecting that in the price of the Oracle stock. That's exactly what happened.
Elon Musk, he briefly lost his title as the world's richest man. Does this show how volatile extreme wealth is able to be in the age of AI?
Obviously, yeah. I mean, I don't think Larry Ellison or Elon are hurting. They're going to be able to afford hamburgers tomorrow, that's for sure. I think that, you know, picking the winners and losers and determining which companies are going to forge ahead is based on how much capacity for AI modeling they can bring to the market at any one time. And so it's a race. It's an absolutely huge race. I don't think there's just going to be one winner, whether it's Microsoft or Google or Oracle or X or OpenAI. I mean, there's so many players, but what's for sure, this is going to have more impact in terms of human productivity, enterprise productivity, profits, margin expansion, all of that, than the internet had in the early 90s. That's the way the market is treating it. This has tremendous impact in every aspect of how we live, how we fight wars, how we develop products, medicines. It doesn't matter. AI is involved in all of it.
You have a lot of experience being around the ultra wealthy. How much is there involved in bragging rights? Are they going out of their way to try and be the richest man in the world?
I don't think that's what's driving them. There's a fair amount of passion for winning at the AI race. And it's very interesting week to week to see which metric is measured in terms of who's ahead. And what is emerging pretty quickly is who can build more data centers faster. That's basically it. It's the capacity to compute, the ability to run models. Where can you get the energy for that? And that is sort of where the focus of the market is today. It's completely changed the real estate industry. The fastest fund flows now into any asset class of real estate is the development of data centers, which requires land permits, water, fiber, areas outside of flood zones, all kinds of very complex metrics in order to be able to build and permit and provide power for a gigawatt data center. And that's the minimum size. Only 18 months ago, they would consider 250 megawatts, but now it's a gigawatt or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that governments want, that companies want, that enterprise wants, that the DoD wants. You need massive computing power. And I keep harping back on this. That requires power and it requires development. And it's a renaissance in real estate for fund flows. The multiple billions coming into funds that are going to develop data centers is unprecedented.
And turning to Tesla now, it's been struggling over the past year. Oracle is obviously, it's soaring. Is Elon Musk, is he still the face of tech dominance? Or is the AI booming, is it shifting that spotlight?
No, I think Elon's unique in the sense that he has so many different mandates that he owns and manages. Neuralink, Starlink, SpaceX, Tesla, new initiatives in robotics. Very few individuals have that much diversification and breadth. So when you buy Tesla, you're kind of betting on driverless taxis, robotic taxis, robots themselves, Tesla, the car company, the technology patents they have, the resolution in driving miles, all of that stuff. And the stock has been very volatile, let's face it. I mean, Elon also is a unusual character. He's like the modern Bruce Wayne. I mean, it's kind of interesting to watch him weigh in on things, and of course causes volatility to the Tesla stock. A lot of investors wish he wouldn't do that, but he's not going to change. And people that own the stock understand Elon is Elon, and that's it. And so I think where we're going into is a very interesting period now where you're going to be betting on the future of Tesla, not necessarily this quarter's earnings.
Is Tesla's $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk a bold bet on the future, or is it a desperate move to keep him focused?
It could be interpreted that way, but on the other hand, if they granted this package, if it was approved, I would be more prone to own Tesla stock because the milestones he has to hit make shareholders 10 times more money than he gets. So it's a really interesting way to look at it. Yes, it's the largest pay package in history, but it would turn Tesla, if he hit any of these milestones, into the largest company on earth by a factor of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So he'd have to win in every single mandate, entirely own 30, 40% of the autonomous taxi market, and a huge portion of the space satellite business, and anything that Tesla's involved in terms of robotics and energy and battery forms. I mean, he has to win on everything to hit these targets. So why not give it to him? I'm in favor of this.
Musk said he needs 25% control to lead Tesla into an AI-driven future. But should anyone have that much power in a public traded company?
Well, I think that's for the board to decide and the shareholders themselves, and they can certainly vote on it. I wouldn't bet against Elon Musk on anything. It's clearly he's one of the few individuals that can hit these targets and has done it before. I remember 2018 when they proposed a pay package like this. People balked at it, thought it was ridiculous. He hit every target, every single one. And so, that's why I say the track record is pretty clear, and I think he should be given this opportunity.
Are tariffs and immigration crackdowns, are they making it harder, not easier, to bring back jobs and investments into America?
Policy's moving. It's changing all the time. I think the tech leaders have been talking to the administration a lot about immigration policy, particularly for engineers. Obviously, Trump got elected. One of his primary mandates was to shut down the illegal flow of immigration in the cases where it was illegal, and he did that. But it was a very broad mandate that he put in place that also made it more difficult for people that are essential for the economy, including cohorts of students being educated in American institutions and everything else. So you can expect over the next year some softening in these policies to accommodate the demands of private sector and public sector. And I think, it was a very broad, sweeping attempt to fix the immigration problems, and in doing so made it difficult for just law-abiding applications. And that's really what people are talking about. So they're going to try and fix that, as they should, because it's important, whether it's in the ag space, farm workers. I mean, there's already been adjustments to those policies. You can't run a farm without people working on it, and many of these people have been legitimate taxpayers, although maybe their accreditation is not perfect, but they're certainly not criminals, and they're, this is a big challenge for the farmers. Restaurant workers is another example. You talk to operators in that space. There are jobs out there that are filled by people that may not have got the correct visa. And how do you adjust that so that you have a path to keep them productive without destroying the business they work for? That's sort of the dilemma private sector is dealing with right now on immigration policy.
Is Klarna's buy now, pay later model a smart long-term investment?
There's a lot of new models coming out and new ideas, and that's one you just detailed. But let me point something out that's the underpinning of why there's so much optimism in the markets right now. We've talked about blockchain technologies for over a decade, 12 years. And all of a sudden, the Stablecoin Act, now called the Genius Act, passes just a couple of months ago. It opens up for digital payment systems. It also moves the needle closer to full adoption of Bitcoin, either as a commodity or security, yet to be determined by the Clarity Act, and the other people call it the Infrastructure Act. That's coming soon. So that's being contemplated now by Congress and the Senate and those that are trying to push the bill. My whole point is, when you start talking about Bitcoin and crypto, and we've got during the cowboy period of crypto and digital payment systems, 10,000 tokens came to market. They're out there still, 10,000. But they're almost all irrelevant if you're just trying to capture the promise of crypto. You could own just two securities. You could own Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you would capture more than 90% of the alpha or price volatility of the entire crypto market. In addition, and this is sort of the strategy I've adopted since the bill passed, since the Genius Act passed, I see now that Wall Street is going on chain. It's going to go on chain. The adoption of tokenization of securities, digital payment systems, transfer of stable coins, all of that stuff is happening at a geometric increased pace, just really fast. And so how do you play that? How do you play the infrastructure? Well, that points to Ethereum. That's the number one blockchain product. It's the one that every ticker in business television around the world tracks the price of, that and Bitcoin. So if you just buy those two, you have the most liquid, the largest market cap of crypto. One is basically digital gold, if you want to call that Bitcoin, and the other is Wall Street going on chain, which is Ethereum. But there's another huge benefit. And I think a lot of people are thinking about this. I certainly have done it. If you have Bitcoin and you have ETH, Ethereum and Bitcoin together, you can wrap and you can stake and you can create a distribution. You can get yield off this combination that you couldn't before. And, so to do that is not easy. And that's why, you have to have a team to help you do it. But all of a sudden, I've now just adopted two positions. I have a little bit of stablecoin, but I have Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I have yield. I get a check every month. So all of a sudden, an asset class that, I'm holding on to, like gold in perpetuity for a 5% weighting or 10% weighting, between the two of them, it's 10%. I'm getting a check every month. I'm really happy about that. And this is the maturation of the crypto market. This is the adoption of an institutional allocation to it, with the benefit of owning the infrastructure as Wall Street adopts blockchain technology, that's Ethereum, and of course owning digital gold in the form of Bitcoin. And I also own the infrastructure, a BitZero, Norway and Finnish miner of Bitcoin that I'm a shareholder in, Robinhood, Coinbase, the infrastructure plays. But in aggregate, you only really need to own two cryptos to enjoy the entire alpha of the entire crypto sector. So everybody talks to me about other ideas, but I say, that's great. Show me why that is better than owning the two granddaddies. They have no answer to that.
And is it digital gold, Kevin?
I think it is. I think it's here to stay. I mean, not everybody is permitted to own Bitcoin as the coin itself. And that's why these treasury products have emerged. So you can own a stock. I have yet to see a treasury product I want yet, because none of them pay without using extensive leverage. I don't like extensive leverage, any distribution. So for me, it's about managing my Ethereum against the Bitcoin, wrapping and staking, and get a distribution every month. And I've had to build a whole team for that, but it's worth it. It's a big asset class for us.
What's the biggest challenge? It appears to be regulation from your end.
Yeah, it is. We still don't have what we need in terms of deeming Bitcoin a true security or commodity. We need to get that done. I think we're moving very quickly towards that. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think in some ways, you think about Saudi Arabia and the region, they've been very, very open to crypto because they see the potential for it solving a lot of problems in just banking, in just transfer of assets and compliance and auditability and all of that. It's just, we're in a golden age of financial services. And I've said this so many times, but I actually think that crypto will become the 12th sector of the S&P 500 within 5 years. It's only a few $1 trillion right now versus the overall, it's a fraction of wealth management globally, but we're in the first inning. And with regulation coming, it's going to grow faster and faster.
Has Apple's innovation, has it slowed down? Obviously, since the passing of Steve Jobs, he was someone who you worked with the iPhone 17, offering incremental upgrades.
I think Apple shouldn't be just viewed as a hardware update. I think the enterprise services, the individual services that come with the phone are going to become more and more of the profit story. Everybody has a phone, not everybody has an iPhone. So the opportunity is to make the product better and better. But I would say there's a challenge. I mean, I have two iPhones. I got called this morning to put my pre-order in for the new phone. I said, I'm going to wait. One of the challenges is there's so much software and code already on this phone that porting it over to a new phone, while many say it's easy to do, that's just not factual. the authenticators themselves, very complex to move them over. The accreditation, the passwords on all the different apps that I use on here, it takes a whole day or 2 days to make the move to the new platform. So before I do that, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what the new one brings out. I eventually will adopt the update because the cameras continue to get better and better. But that's just one user talking. So you multiply that by millions. And I think my whole point about this is the adoption cycle is a slower move, which is good and bad, but it kind of levels out earnings across multiple quarters for Apple as opposed to all in one quarter, which used to be in the early days. But I think that the adoption of AI is going to accelerate the adoption of faster speed hardware on the iPhone because you have to have it. You need really tremendous battery life and processing speed to make good use of AI. And that's probably the number one motivation for me to move up. But having said that, I own Apple stock. It's been a holding I've had for a very long time. Counting Apple out is crazy. I mean, it's just such a massive enterprise. And they're very, very good at adopting features that others may bring to market first, but they have the platform to accelerate it and grow it.
Just lastly, Kevin, always if we have Mr. Wonderful on the show, for the viewers who might not know, he has one of the finest watch collections in the world. What's on the wrist today, Kevin?
Well, it's very rare that I can show you two piece uniques. Now, a piece unique means only one of them was made and only one of them will ever be made. And so a piece unique has a special status in watch collecting. This on my right is a Chanel boyfriend. It's a remarkable piece. There's only one of them. It's got Coco Chanel on it, saying it's Chanel time, just a whimsical kind of comic book look. But the dial itself was made in the FP Journe dial factory in Geneva. And according to the staff there, the most complicated dial they ever baked. It's enamel baked in ovens at 1,200 degrees. They'll probably never do it again. And of course, when it went to auction, it sold for an extraordinary price. And I must say, I was not expecting it to go that high. There was a bidder in Singapore that was, absolutely determined to own it. But
how much?
Mindset piece unique. It was about $280,000. It was thought to go between 60 and 80. But this other buyer knew about the dial as I did. We were both Journe collectors. When I get my focus on a watch, or a sports card for that matter, recently we paid $12.9 million for the piece unique Jordan Kobe dual logo man, another collectible. See, I like piece uniques, but this piece is extraordinary, and it was for charity. So I felt, it was a large price, but I'm happy it went to charity. Then this happened. I was over in Geneva. I mean, this story is remarkable. And I meet with the CEO of Chanel. And he says to me, we know you wear two watches, Kevin. What are you going to pair that Chanel, that one-of-a-kind piece unique you have? Because we know you only have one Chanel. I said, well, that is a dilemma. I only have one Chanel. And he said, let's fix that. And we did together a collaboration on a remarkable new piece unique, almost like a Pollock painting. This is Coco Chanel's nail polish poured over a dial and the bezel. You can feel it, and then baked in a proprietary manner. It's the only one on earth certified, except for the Heritage Museum of Chanel, to have a copy of it for posterity.
If I may ask, Kevin, could you bring it up to the camera, please?
Two piece uniques made by Chanel. That is so rare, and I'm so honored to wear them. And I'm honored that a maison like Chanel, so legendary, and they know of my family's interest. My mother used to buy Chanel clothing. I'm a huge fan of Coco Chanel in the late 50s and what she brought as the first feminist, all of that, the heritage. But to have two piece uniques, I mean, that's a dream for a collector, and I'm just honored.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time.
I'll get you a close-up. I'm going to go up to the camera so you can cut to these if you wish.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, it's beautiful, incredible.
And then this one. And I'll put them together.
I've never seen, I've never seen a watch that looks like that.
No, they are unique.
Just as unique as yourself, Kevin. We really appreciate your time as ever.
You got it. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks so much. All the very best. That's all we have time for on Global News today. Thanks for watching and be sure to join us tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, goodbye.